Greetings, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar on the upcoming ushering module. We did one a few weeks ago from an administrator standpoint, and there's a recording of that on the ClubExpress website. And today is looking at it from the usher standpoint. So let's do some housekeeping first. The phones are muted and the microphones are muted because we have a lot of people in the session here. We don't want to hear everybody typing away at their keyboards. So what we'd like you to do is you have questions along the way, enter them into the chat window. Now, there will be a recording of this webinar as we did the last one, and we will put it up on the ClubExpress YouTube channel, and I think there will be a link to it from the Saints website. So at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Dan. I'm going to spotlight Dan. You should now see Dan's smiling face. Dan, you can unmute your microphone, give a little introduction, and then share your screen.
Okay. Thank you, Alan. Good afternoon, everyone. Appreciate you coming to join us today. We've been working on this ushering module with the Saints executive team for about 4 or 5 months now. We are almost done. The last little bits are being tested right now. We've got reports. We've got some internal processes that get run automatically, and those are in testing right now. And I would hope that we can deploy them by the end of the week, and then the module will be done. And then you all get a chance to start using it, building out the different productions, and being able to sign up for performances. I'm sure there'll probably be little issues or glitches or things we've forgotten, and there'll be a process for providing those to the technical team, who will then forward them to us, and we'll work out how to implement those. So we're going to start out by showing you how you access the ushering module, what you'll see, and then how you can find productions once you select a production, how you can find a performance, how you sign up for the performance, and then what happens at that point. Now we start out on the member profile screen, and there's a new option on the profile screen called ushering. So let me switch over to the Saints website. I'm going to log in as a special user account that we have to run this demo, and it's a test user account. And when I do that, this test user account's about to expire. But if I go to my profile screen, there is a new option here that says ushering. And when I click on that option, I come in to the ushering screen. Now, the first thing you'll see is a custom message from the board that can be changed on a regular basis. After that, you have the ability to filter by upcoming or past assignments. So if I go back to the screen, you'll see the message from the board appears here. And then down below, you can see all of your upcoming assignments. So this is everything in the future. And for each production, you'll see the production name, the venue, the date, the status, the report time, dress code, and your status as well. Now there are some icons here which we'll get to in a moment, but you can also filter and look at your past assignments. So this shows you everything that you've done in the past, and this list will just grow as you do the different ushering assignments. Now this one is read-only, so there's no maintain column, there's nothing that's listed here. But when we look at upcoming assignments, there are a number of icons that are listed here, and let's just run through those. The first one is called the iCal icon, and this actually will open up a calendar object that you can then save in your calendar software. Whatever software you're using on your device, it will allow you to add this ushering assignment to your calendar. The second icon will display a Google map that shows you where the venue is. So if I click that for Chicago Children's Theater, let's see what happens. It brings up a Google map, and we can see the location for the Chicago Children's Theater. The third icon allows you to resend the confirmation email to yourself so that you have a record in email. Perhaps you missed the first one or deleted it by accident. So you can see all of the details of the ushering assignment in a confirmation email.
Dan, there's a question about the report time. There's a date, but the date doesn't show the time of the performance. Is that something that's going to be added, or do you have to go to the details to find out which performance on that date?
No, that's going to be added. It looks like that was an oversight, and so we'll be sure to add that. And then the last icon here allows you to submit a cancellation request. If something comes up where you can't fulfill the ushering assignment that's been approved, you can submit a cancellation request. It will generate an email to the coordinator for that venue or for that company, who then has the ability to review that request and either approve it or decline it. And there's a whole sort of process behind the scenes of how that all is handled. Let's go back to the slideshow. So again, here are the icons in the maintain column: the calendar, the map, the confirmation email, and the cancellation request. So let's move to requesting an assignment. There is a button at the top that allows you to request an assignment. And when you click on that button, it'll take you to a screen that allows you to search for a production in a number of different ways. So let's do that. We'll click on this button here that says request assignment, and it takes you to this screen that allows you to search for a production in different ways. Now you can search by title or by venue, and you enter a partial value and it will be found anywhere in the field. It doesn't have to be at the beginning. It doesn't have to be an exact match. You can search for a date range based on start date and finish date. So if you're looking for a production that has performances within a specific date range, you can specify that range. You either type in the date directly, or you can click this little icon to get a date selector. For production category, you can select one or more categories. So for example, if you're interested in music productions only, you can select multiple music productions and it'll say 3 items checked. You can check them all, or you can check just one, or you can check none. Same for region. There are regions defined, the obvious ones for those of us that know Chicago well: downtown, the north side, near west side, and you can see all of the different general regions here. And every venue has been assigned a specific region. And then you can also filter by time slot. But here, again, you can pick one or more time slots, and every production and every performance has been allocated a specific time slot. So if you're interested in evenings, or if you're interested in late afternoons, you can select those as well. Now, let's just uncheck those. And let's do a search for productions between, let's say, 10/20/2018 and 10/31. No, let's go into November. Let's say 11/10/2018, and we'll click search. And in this case, we only have one production that's showing up. And for each production, you'll see the title, you'll see a short description, the venue, and general notes about the production. This production will match whatever criteria you've specified up here. And you would click the select button to see more details about that production. So when I do that, I now have the ability to search for a performance. Let's go back to the slideshow. So now I have the ability to search for a performance, and I can search in a number of different ways, but I also see the full details for the production. So in this case, here is about Elijah. Here is the venue, plus a Google link so that you can see exactly where it is, the company, and more details about the location. I can filter by date range. I can also filter by time slot, so look for specific performances. And I can filter by performance type. And each performance has been assigned a specific performance type. There are some people that don't want to do previews or openings. Maybe the dress requirements are stricter for an opening or a press opening. You might say, I want regular performances only. You don't care if there's an understudy. And then what you see underneath is a list of performances. So for each performance, you will see the date, the time, the type of performance, how many slots are open, and whether the coordinator, the venue or company coordinator, has designated that performance as being one it's urgent to fill. And so there might be more leeway, for example, in terms of bringing a guest along to help with the ushering assignment. Now, the way that you request assignment is by raising your hand. So you click on this button that is a raised hand here to request assignment. Let's go back to the slideshow. And when you sign up for a performance, the available options that you see will be different depending on how the performance is configured, and also it will depend on your membership. So let's have a look at some of these different options. I'm logged in as someone that is an individual member, and there happen to be 9 slots open for this performance. So if I request assignment, I will have one option here, which means I'm signing myself up, and I have another option here which says I can sign up another member. If there was only one slot open, then this second radio button wouldn't show up. There's only one slot open, I can only sign up myself. If you select the option to sign up another member, you have to know that member's member number. We don't do it by name, we don't do it by email address or anything else. If you regularly want to usher with somebody else, just find out their member number. And the best way, by the way, for someone to determine their member number is to go to the profile screen, and the member number is listed right here at the top of the profile screen. So every member can see their member number right away. Now when I select this, if I do that, I would type in another member's number, and then when I click save, what I'm requesting is an ushering assignment for both of us. Now I just want to mention a little aside here. In the previous webinar that we did for coordinators, one of the coordinators chimed in and said that she has a group of people, like 4 people, who always sign up and want to usher together. I need to mention that right now the system does not handle that, but it is being considered as a future request. And what I would suggest that you do in this situation is that you divide the group of 4 up into 2 groups of 2, and one person signs up themselves plus the second person, and then the third person signs up themselves and the fourth person. And if you do it on the phone while you're there at the same time, you'll be able to get the assignment together. So as I said, we will consider an enhancement where you can add multiple members here, but that won't be in the initial release. It'll be in a future release, probably in 2019. Now, if I go down to this performance here, which is a different performance, and click on Request Assignment, you'll notice now that we have 3 buttons. And this performance, perhaps it's more urgent or it's harder to fill, and so the coordinator has configured this performance to allow you to sign up a non-member. So if I click this option here, what we need to collect for that non-member, and all of these fields are required, is their first name, last name, a phone number, generally their cell phone nowadays, and their email address. The coordinator needs all of this information, and in some cases the venue also needs that information. Some of the venues, when we send the list of ushers for specific performances, the venues also require that information. So if you're going to bring a non-member, enter that information and enter it correctly. If a coordinator detects that you've entered junk information, then they may very well reject, decline the ushering assignment. Now there's a 4th option that happens here. Let me just sign up for this one. So you'll notice the number of open slots has immediately gone down. And when I go back to the previous screen, and then go back to the previous screen, Elijah is now listed here. Here is the ushering assignment, and the status right now is requested. So right now, it hasn't been approved. An email has been sent to the coordinator. The coordinator logs into their set of screens. They review the request, and then they either say approve, and then you'll get an email to say that your ushering request has been approved. If it's declined, then the coordinator specifies a reason, and then you'll get an email to say that your request has been declined with the reason. If it's a reason that you can deal with, perhaps you request a different performance or a different production. Now, I'm going to log out as test user, and I'm going to log in with a different account, and in this case, it's tuser1. And we have a different user account here, test1 user, and this happens to be a household member. When I click on Ushering and request an assignment for Elijah, and I'll go down to this production down here, you'll notice that there are now 4 options here. This second option, me plus a spouse or partner, only appears if you have a household membership, which means that there are 2 of you in the household, and you're signing up not only yourself, but also your spouse or partner. And there's no additional information. Actually, there is, because I believe household membership may include like 3 people rather than just 2. And so you have to select which spouse or partner you're actually bringing to this performance. And in this case, you click Save. And when we do that, you'll notice that this 8 down here should drop down to 6, because now we've signed up 2 people. And when I go back and go back again for this user, there's now an Elijah. The ushering assignment has been requested, and once it's been approved, then both of you, the 2 people, if you're signing up more than 1 person, then each person will get a confirmation email that the ushering assignment has been approved or declined. Now let's go back to the slideshow, make sure we've covered everything here. So if only 1 slot is available, the only option you'll see is me. If it's a household membership and more than 1 slot is available, you'll see me plus spouse or partner. If more than 1 slot is available, you'll see me plus another member, and you must know that member's number. And if more than 1 slot is available and the coordinator is allowing non-members to usher, you'll see the option that says me plus a non-member, and you must have your guest's cell phone and email address. Now, there's one thing that's important to understand. If you pop up this little dialogue, let me just bring that one up again. Let's request an assignment. Let's go to Elijah. I'll select this performance. If you sit on this dialogue for a few minutes, maybe you have to call your spouse or partner or another member or whatever. If you're sitting here for a bit and it happens to be a very popular production, one that fills up very quickly, and perhaps a popular performance like a Saturday evening, you might find when you click Save that somebody else has jumped in and has very quickly, picked that performance, signed up 2 people. Maybe there were only 2 slots available. The system performs another check at the last minute. And if you click Save, you may see an error message to say, sorry, you took too long, and this performance is full. Pick another one. If you see that message, it means somebody else jumped in while you were dilly-dallying. And so, then you have to pick another performance. But my suggestion is, before you click on the raised hand, before you click here, make sure you know exactly what you want and who's coming, so that you can click on the hand and do it very quickly, especially if it's a popular production and a popular performance. Now you'll notice also that this icon has changed. I'm logged in here as tuser1, and the system knows that I've already requested an assignment. So there's nothing to click here. The system will protect you against selecting the same performance more than once. Now, if it happens to be a popular show and you want to see it twice, well, there's nothing to stop you from selecting a different performance, but you cannot select the same performance twice. So back to the slideshow. When you request an assignment, you and your guest will receive a confirmation email that the request was submitted. A separate email is sent to the performance and production coordinators. Could be a venue coordinator, could be a company coordinator. And that request can be confirmed or declined. If it's confirmed, you and the guest will receive a confirmation email. If it's declined, you and your guest will receive a decline email that states a reason. And just to wrap up, because we're almost done here, it really is quite simple. We are adding some reports that will show you all of your past and future ushering assignments. So those reports will appear on your profile screen. Right here, there'll be a new option where you can view and output a report that shows you all of the ushering that you've done in the past. I think it can be filtered by date range, and then all of the ushering assignments in the future. So I believe, actually, that's it. It's really pretty simple. As a saint, you have the ability to, just to recap, you start out by looking at your current and past ushering assignments. You can then request a new assignment. You can search for a production that exactly matches what you're interested in. You see a list of those matching productions. You select one of them and you can see a list of performances. There could be 40 or 50 performances in the list, and you can filter that list down to make it shorter, perhaps the days that you're interested in, the days of the week, or the times of the day. You find a performance, you select it, and then you decide who you're requesting. Is it just yourself? Is it yourself plus a spouse, another member, or even a non-member guest if that's allowed? And then you sit back and wait for the coordinator to respond. So I see the questions, Alan, thank you.
All right.
First question was from Ellen. What is the timetable for getting this up and running? Our timetable for finishing the development, testing it, and deploying it is probably the end of this week. I mean, we're really very, very close. I'm sure there'll be a couple of things that the Saints technical team will find and will ask us to change. We already noticed one of those. The time of the performance was not on the future assignment screen, so we'll make sure that we add that very quickly. But our part should be done by the end of this week. After that, the Saints, I'm sure, will go through an acceptance process. And then there's also the process to populate a lot of data in the system. Now, I believe, and Frank is online, so he can possibly correct that, but I believe that all of the venues and the companies have already been loaded into the system. So what needs to be done is to catch up with productions that are currently live and performances. Now, some of that will also depend on the coordinators. I know there are some coordinators that are really chomping at the bit to get this up and running, and other coordinators may take a little bit longer to switch over and get comfortable with their side of the new system. But I would imagine that the Saints will probably be sending out emails to say, okay, the following productions are now live, the following coordinators are now live. So those of you that usher frequently, with the same venues or the same coordinators, just watch those emails and keep an eye on them. And I would imagine that well before the end of the year, that everyone will be live and switched over. Question from Marvin. Yes, let me point out what Marvin is talking about here. And before I do that, let me share my screen again. So I'm going to go back to the Saints website. Now, the other thing is that this screen here, where you can request an assignment, this screen will be accessible also by adding a new option to this menu on the left here, and it'll be right up near the top, near where it says Spotlight right now. So I imagine, in the second, third, or fourth position, there will be an option that says Ushering, and when you select that option, it will take you straight to this screen. So it's another way to get to the screen where you can see what assignments are available and jump right in and find a performance. So you won't have to go through your profile screen. Marvin, thank you for pointing that out. Question from Barbara about setting up favorites for venues. We do not have that functionality right now. It's a very interesting suggestion. So I'd suggest that you pass that through to the technology team. That's Frank and Marvin in particular, and they'll log all of those suggestions. And then when we come to look at version 2 and some enhancements for 2019, we'll certainly discuss that. And in fact, if lots of you are interested in any suggestion or any enhancement, make sure that you all email the technical team, because the more votes there are for a specific feature, the more likely it is to be implemented. Question from Ellen to everyone: will this be used for all venues, for example, the CSO? I'm afraid I can't answer that question. Frank and Marvin, perhaps to type in a reply.
Frank, are you there?
I am here.
Okay, can you answer that?
We anticipate that all venues will be on this system by the end of the year, yes.
Thank you.
Next question from McD. Will we still find out about what shows, venues, and dates are in the spotlight as before? And again, I have to defer to the Saints as to whether they will still use some of the old methods to publicize things, emails, or whether they're really going to, want everyone pushing towards this new system.
The anticipated transition is by the end of the year. Through the end of the year, we will have both the old system and the new system, in other words, Spotlight, Cyberline, and the Usher module. When everything is completed, we anticipate that the Spotlight itself will go away. The Cyberline will substantially change its function, but will still appear.
Okay, good. Okay, question from Barbara Young. Will new performances appear in the Usher module before we get the weekly Cyberline?
We're anticipating at this point that these Usher module will match the timetable of the Cyberline and Spotlight, so that new productions initially will start appearing at the first of the month, roughly coincidental with the Spotlight, so that you have time to get adjusted to the new system before everything changes.
Okay, thank you. Question from McD. We can only request one date at a time. The answer right now is yes. In the past, we were able to give the coordinator a few choices for popular shows. Right now, you request specific performances. Now, as a possible enhancement in the future, we might allow you to sign up for more than one performance and perhaps to add a note to say which is your first choice, second choice, third choice, or maybe we come up with some other scheme. But the interface as it's designed, and keep in mind that we didn't design this in isolation. I mean, we sat down with the technology committee and had a number of meetings and went through a number of iterations of a written specification to come up with the design that you see in front of you.
In relation to that last question,
go ahead.
It's anticipated that you will not need, the procedure here in the past has been to request 3 dates or more by email so that the coordinator would have a selection of what was available. That is anticipated not to be necessary, and that you only need to request the one slot that you actually want, because what you're looking at is live inventory. You're not looking at an outdated Spotlight or Cyberline.
Right. Yeah. Good point. I mean, when you see a count of performances that have been opened up and how many slots are available, that is live and accurate. So that's why there's really no question that you might not get an assignment because the coordinator is juggling half a dozen emails. It's live. If you sign up for it and you're eligible and everything's hunky-dory, then that's the assignment that you'll get. So we have a question from S.J. Foster. What are the reasons for declining if slots are available? I guess one of the most obvious reasons are if you've demonstrated to that coordinator that you're not a reliable usher and you're continually signing up and canceling, that coordinator may say, look, I really don't want you to usher here. If there have been complaints from a particular venue, the coordinator might say that I don't want you ushering here, or perhaps there's a specific performance that the coordinator wants, I don't know, favorite ushers. I'm not really sure. I mean, there are reasons that are built into the system, and the coordinator can specify other reasons, ad hoc reasons as well. But in general, if you're an usher in good standing and you have a good relationship with that venue, with that company, and with that coordinator, then in general, there's no reason why your request would be declined. The question from Lorraine, is a request a certainty? I will never need to ask if full. I would do it alone. And as Frank just pointed out, I mean, it's not a certainty, but it's, it's a very strong presumption that if there's a slot available and you've requested it, and again, with the caveats I mentioned just a moment ago, then you will get that assignment. Question from SV van der Wicken. Is there still going to be a spotlight? And I think Frank answered that already. Question from SJ Foster. I'm not clear about how we know all of the performances available at the time. If a performance is listed, when you see the list of performances, then and the number of slots is greater than 0, it will be listed, then it's available to sign up. Now, the coordinators may not open up all the performances immediately. If a particular production has 50 performances, the coordinator may not want people signing up right at the very end of the production. And so he or she might only open up the first, 10 or 20 performances and really encourage people to sign up early because those are the ones that need to be filled. There is also an urgent flag that the coordinator can set to tell you that it's really urgent that we find somebody for a specific performance. And of course, there's also the flag that the coordinator can use to allow non-members to usher as well if the slots are not being filled. Now, the other thing to keep in mind is that the coordinator can also fill slots through the administrative interface. So a coordinator can fill a slot by working directly with somebody and encouraging them to to sign up outside the user interface. Okay, will we be able to practice at the site? That is a wonderful question, Maggie. My suggestion would be, and again, this will be up to the Saints, my suggestion would be that they create 1 or 2 test productions that they make available that are clearly labeled as test productions and allow you to sign up a spouse or partner, sign up another member, sign up a non-member, and there would be a nominal coordinator for that test productions who can accept, decline, and ultimately, so you can see how everything works and you can see all the emails that flow back and forth. I think that's a wonderful idea and it would be pretty easy to set up. Question from A. Gertz. Actually, a comment, I think we've dealt with this already. You don't have to provide multiple requests because you're seeing what's available in real time. Question from Vicky. What happens if the person you are signing up does not have an email? I believe that the Saints policy going forward, and also because the companies and venues are requiring this, I believe going forward that everyone that signs up will need to have an email address. But Frank, perhaps you could address that?
Indeed. There are very few members, and I'm talking in single digits here, of members that do not have an email address. So that should not be a concern to the vast majority of Saints. Every member should have their own email address and it should be in their profile.
But just to extend that, if you want to sign up a non-member, they will need to have an email address as well. Question from S. van der Wicken again. If coordinators have info on past infractions, wrong dress or whatever, can volunteers see what info they have? We do not have that functionality in the system right now. We have had some internal discussions about whether the system would track infractions or excessive cancellations. That functionality may be added in the future, but it's not there right now. All right. Question from Katie. How do you select performance preferences? And the answer right now is that we don't have a way for you to record performance preferences so that those are automatically selected. If that's a feature that you feel would be valuable to you and other members, then by all means, please submit it. Question from M. Chapman. When will this start? Since we're doing this only for some shows or venues, will you get a list of those that are participating?
The answer is yes.
Yeah.
It will be in the Spotlight and the Cyberline both as to what's available. So you can refer to that. We may very possibly send out specific emails as well.
Question from S.J. Foster. How much time will elapse between the request and the approval? That's really up to each coordinator. Some coordinators will be sitting in front of their computer, and it'll also vary, I'm sure, by time of day and by day of week. I think the coordinators are will generally be encouraged to respond within 24 to 48 hours. Now, I should mention, by the way, that when you request an assignment, that slot is actually reserved. So if you request an assignment, the slot is immediately reserved for you. It hasn't been approved yet. Once it's approved, the slot is there, you've got it. If it's declined, then that slot is freed up again for somebody else to select. So there's no chance that if it takes, say, 48 hours before the coordinator gets back to you and approves your request, there's no chance that somebody else will drop in. That slot is reserved to you, even though the request is still pending. Okay, and there the comment from Chris, depends on time. She tries to get on every morning and tries to respond within 24 hours. How can a member print out the instructions? One of the things that that we're planning to add, there will be online help for all of the screens that we've seen. And yes, one of the last things that we have to deliver is a manual, some written documentation, and the Saints will certainly make that available. Documentation for coordinators and documentation for members. How can a member make a request including a household couple, that is 3 people, from Roberta? Roberta, right now the answer is you can't. When you're adding a member or a non-member, it's only 1 person at the present time. We do have the request already on the wish list to add support for more than 1 person, and that will certainly be considered. Question from Lorraine, I sometimes usher the same show more than once. Will the module allow me to sign up? And I believe I demonstrated that. The answer is absolutely yes. Question from SJ Foster, if you accidentally sign up for 2 performances at the same time, will the system give a warning? I believe the answer is yes. It gives you a warning, or it may in fact, I have to check into this with the developers, but it may be that if you have a performance on Saturday afternoon, the 20th of the month, that if you look at another production, any performances that are in the same time slot for that date won't be shown. But I have to check with the developer on that. Will it be possible to have slides or screenshots of the presentation? Question from Nancy. Nancy, you may have missed this at the beginning, but the whole webinar has been recorded, and it will be edited and will be available on YouTube in the ClubExpress channel within 48 hours. And we will also make sure that there's a link on the Saints website so that you can go to the video, and then you can, of course, scroll through the different sections very quickly. Question from Stephanie, if you fill out 2 to 4 requests on one play, will the coordinator respond right away like the old way? Stephanie, I would strongly suggest that that's not the way that this is intended to be used. If you fill out 4 requests for the same play, coordinators will likely come back and say, please don't do that. Fill out the request that you really want, and you have that slot, and that's the one that the coordinator will approve. And I think the strong instructions from the technology team will be, use the system. It's been designed to give you what you want, and that's how you should use it.
That's exactly correct. Multiple requests are not going to be appreciated because it will be filling up space. As you say, you have that slot reserved. You're then taking away those 2 or 4 slots from other members that could be using them until the coordinator answers your request. So it's inappropriate to do that.
Okay, thank you, Frank. Question from Katie, can we still request the old way? Well, I guess the answer is that's up to the coordinators. One of the reasons for doing this was really to try to make life simpler for the coordinators. If you're still doing requests the old way, I would imagine that the coordinators will very quickly tell you, no, I'm no longer accepting requests the old way. Start using the system online. It's really very easy once you get the hang of it. And the suggestion about having some test productions and performances so that you can get the hang of it really is an excellent one. Question from Lorraine, is there a way to add free parking to the search? The answer is that's not in the system right now, but it's a very interesting suggestion, so I'd suggest you submit that to the technology team. How will we know when a new production will be listed? I believe the Saints, as Frank said earlier, will be changing how the Cyberline works. So there'll be regular emails that go out about new productions. But if you don't want to wait for the weekly or twice weekly email, You can also go in and check the production search screen on a regular basis. And if you see a new production and there are performances, away you go. Question from Tilly: can a saint access the sign-up as soon as the spotlight is available, and unless one is PNG, persona non grata, I'm assuming, will one most likely be approved? What is the turnaround time from request to confirmation? Well, the turnaround time we've addressed already. And in terms of how soon can you sign up, as soon as you see the production and as soon as you see the performance, it's available to you to sign up. Question from iPad: is there a way to include running time for the show if it's known? We are collecting that information. If it's not shown, I agree it should be shown. So I will get back with the developers and we'll make sure that when you select a production and you look at the performances, you look at the full details for that production, that we will show running time if it's available. I believe we are collecting that. How do we indicate our preference in dates for one performance? From M. Hope. Well, I think we've addressed that a couple of times already. You go through the system, you find a production that you're interested in, you see the list of performances, and you request assignment for the date and time that you're interested in. And if there are slots available, then that's the one that you'll get. Question from Dolores: in the future, do you expect to use this site from Cyberline? And I believe Frank addressed that. The Cyberline could certainly have a link that tells you to jump in to the website to log in as a member, and then everything will be done through this module. Question from S. Vandervicken: can coordinators give notice to their personal lists before the performances are open to everyone? That's up to each coordinator if they still want to do that. Question: there's nothing in the system to stop them doing that. Question from Roberta: is there some production with many performances that's been entered by the coordinator that you can demonstrate right now? Good question. Let me see. Yeah, there are a bunch of productions in the system, but I believe they all have performances in the past. And so the system is not showing those productions. Right now, there's only one production that has performances in the future. So right now, we can't show that, I'm afraid. Question from Christine: if two members sign up together and only one member needs to cancel, how will the system handle that? It handles it just fine. That member can log in and will see that ushering assignment in their profile screen, and they can request individual cancellation.
Dan, Marvin has some comments to make. I've just unmuted his microphone. You there, Marvin?
Yes.
Go ahead, please.
Okay, we have put in a requirement that all non-saints have to fill out a non-saint agreement, just like the member agreement for saints. And non-saints have to be on a list of people who have done that by November 1st. We've gotten several that have come in from the coordinators. Basically, it's the coordinators who have been doing that. So if you have a non-saint friend that you usher with, communicate with the coordinator that you usually use, and then they will be able to send that person an email to sign up.
Okay, great. Thank you, Marvin. Comment from Stephanie: so you keep applying until you get what you want. No, Stephanie, that's not correct. You will apply for the production and performance that you want. Once you click on submit, a slot is reserved for you for that performance and that production. It hasn't been approved yet, it's pending, but that slot is reserved. When the coordinator gets the email and logs into the system, the coordinator will approve it. That's the slot, that's the performance and production that you requested. That's the one you get. It's not possible for somebody else to jump in and take that away from you. Your request is there and reserved. Now, the coordinator can decline the request, and he or she has to provide you with a reason, but there's no need to keep applying and trying again and again and, you know, reserving lots of slots. And in fact, I think the coordinators will be very unhappy if they see that you've requested, you know, half a dozen performances in the hope that you'll get one of them. If you make a request for a specific performance, you've got it. All you have to do is wait for approval. Question from S.J. Foster. If there are many performances and the coordinator opens only a few, will there be a way for us to know the entire run dates of the show other than looking at the theater website? S.J., the system doesn't provide a way to do that, but when the coordinator enters the full description for the production, he or she could say, you know, this show will run through December 31st, but, and, you know, initially only the first 3 weeks are being opened up, or something like that. There's space in the description to put in a comment like that. And, you know, as a matter of policy, the Saints could certainly encourage coordinators to do that. Question from Lorraine. During the time that both email and online are employed, will email users only get assignments that are not filled at the time when the coordinator checks emails? This will mean that any emailed request will not be as attractive. Actually, Lorraine, that's not correct. If you request a specific performance via email, the coordinator will go to that performance, and if there are slots available, the coordinator can assign you to that performance. But the coordinator will also see slots that have been requested. If a specific performance needs 8 ushers, 2 of them have been approved, 3 of them have been requested, and you submitted an email and you need 2 slots, well, those 2 slots are available and you'll get them. But if the people who use the system filled up all the slots and you've submitted an email, well, at that point it's too late, because the people using the system have reserved those slots, and I would guess the coordinator has to have a pretty good reason to reject those assignments and give them to somebody by email. You know, what I'm sensing here is a little bit of uneasiness about using the system and trying to do things the old way. But I really have to impress on you that our understanding from the Saints is that there is very strong encouragement to start doing things the new way as quickly as possible. Comment from Maggie. Thanks for all the grand effort to create this. Break a leg. Thank you, Maggie, for the kind words. Question answered from Christine. Generally, we are requested to submit 3 dates when requesting spots. This system obviates that need. The answer is absolutely correct. In the future, will wait lists be included? From Dolores. Great question. We did make the decision in this initial release not to implement wait lists, but it was part of the discussion, and I imagine it will be part of a future enhancement. When can the item be listed? From S.J. Foster. When can the item be listed on my calendar through the system? At the time of request or approval? The answer is at the time of request. Comment from Chris. As soon as your request is approved or declined, you will receive an email. The system sends out the email immediately. Comment from Laurie, or question, are there exceptions to every rule? I have a very devoted saint who has no computer, no email address, but she's devoted and never disappoints. How can I tell her she can't usher anymore? I can't. My suggestion, Laurie, in that situation is you will need to provide an email address, but perhaps you can provide your email address in lieu of the members. But you know, I'd have to defer to the saints as to whether that's an acceptable solution. Question from Joan, would you please explain how the lottery, i.e. CSO, will work in the new system? I'm going to defer to Frank on that one.
That's going to be a subject of specific discussions with Hugh. I'm due to see him later this afternoon, as a matter of fact. So I expect there will be a lottery system based on how Hugh wants to handle it.
Question from Pam. Were regular members invited to offer suggestions on the implementation or design? I do know that when we met with Frank and Marvin, and there were a couple of other people in some of those early meetings, I apologize, I forget their names. But I do know that they brought with them a very extensive list of comments and suggestions and ideas, many of which came from members, but that also reflected the way the saints and the coordinators wanted the module to work. And that's what we implemented. We certainly did recognize that there would be other ideas that come up, and we've already heard a few of them. And, you know, I do know that the saints certainly do intend to have a second version with enhancements implemented next year, and we'll certainly take as many of those suggestions as possible, and the more votes they get, the more likely they are to be implemented. Question from M. Hope, after the spotlight is eliminated, will the Cyberline be online more than twice a week? I'll defer to Frank on that one.
That one, probably not more than twice a week. It's going to depend on what our needs are. The Cyberline will change, and the exact content is yet to be decided on that.
Okay, and a couple more kudos and thank you to those people that that have sent those to us. Will there be a way for coordinators to give early sign up to their trustee regulars? The system itself doesn't have a feature for that. Certainly it can be submitted as an enhancement. I do know that some of the coordinators have their own mailing lists, and there are procedures for the regulars. So we'll leave that up to the coordinators. There's a question from Barbara about a browse function rather than a search function. Well, the answer is if you go to the production screen and you don't enter any criteria, but just click the search button, you will see every open production. And that's the equivalent of a browse function. Question from S. Carr. Will there be a way to easily identify shows that have immediate needs? The answer is yes. There is an urgent flag that the coordinator can set. So you'll be able to see those productions that are urgent. Is there a way to add a comment to the coordinator? From Jerry. Right now the answer is no, but it's a great suggestion, and if you send it to the technology team, we'll certainly consider it for the next enhancements. And I think that's it. Alan, back to you.
Okay, well, there are still over 90 people in this session, so we appreciate everybody coming and staying with us. I will do my best to edit it to make it a little easier to share with the ushers and the coordinators that could not attend today's meeting. Thank you everyone for coming, and or send messages to Frank and Marvin if you have wish list items or comments or kudos. Everybody likes applause. So thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.